Hi, my name is Alexander Howes, and I just wanted to start off this presentation with a quick disclaimer that this topic is inherently political at this point, and that I'm going to do my best to keep my own opinions out of it. Also, the fact that I reference a source or talk about a source is not my endorsement of that source. Moving forward, this topic is the marketplace of ideas and what it has become in modern day. So, what is the marketplace of ideas? Well, there's actually a misconception that the marketplace of ideas is ancient Greek. In reality, it was coined in 1919 by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in a free speech case. And what he was actually referencing was not the Greeks. He was referencing the book, The Wealth of Nations by John Adams, saying that his free markets ideas should apply, that marketplace of free market should apply to ideas as well. And therefore, just like the market forces that make the best possible goods rise to the top and the inferior goods fail, will make the good ideas rise to the top and the inferior ideas fall through and fail. Then later on, he said that these should occur in specific places. Now, what he wasn't arguing for is that all places should be a marketplace of ideas. But what he was arguing for was that there are very specific places that are marketplaces of ideas, and this is where he cites the ancient Greek Acropolis, the Roman Forum, and things like that in history, town centers. What he's saying is that in these places, people need to be able to share ideas freely. They need to be able to be challenged on their ideas. And when you enter one, that's the full expectation of getting in there. Now, this brings up something that should be talked about, which is free speech. He claims that this is essential to a marketplace of ideas, but it was very clear in his writings that he wasn't arguing for no regulation on all speech, simply no regulation on some speech, specifically in these zones. A funny instance, not a, I guess a funny instance, but an instance of this that we can see in modern day is college campuses who came under fire for implementing the idea of safe spaces, and then under more fire for the idea of open talking spaces, that the whole campus is a quote unquote safe space. And there are specific areas where you're allowed to have full free speech, speech that isn't going to offend people. However, I know they came under fire for it, but in reality, they were adhering to Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes's idea of a marketplace of ideas. He was saying that this needs to occur in a singular place, and college campuses adhered to that idea and said, okay, then free speech happens in this place. On San Diego State's campus, that's the walk in front of Hepner Hall, um, where there have been a lot of protesters and a lot or protests and a lot of other things there that could have been offensive to some people. Moving forward, we have technology in the marketplace. This is where computer science gets involved in this. There are small marketplaces of ideas that still exist. If you've ever been to a debate, that's one of them. You go there expecting to probably be offended at some point. You go there expecting to have your, these big ideas cut up, dissected, observed, and looked at. But there are now global marketplaces, and those exist on technology. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube are three of them. Twitch is another one if you're in the commentary genre. This is, however, unique. One, we have technically a global marketplace, which has never really existed before. But although it's not entirely, global because of the language barrier. But what we also have here is the first time it's ever been ran by a corporation. Most of the time, this is ruled by the governing body. However, here, these marketplaces of ideas are ran by businesses. And it will be surely interesting to see how it plays out. So what are the social and ethical issues? One, they are allowed to set the rules of speech, and it goes platform by platform. For example, YouTube and Twitter would have different rules of engagement, so to say. One example of this is targeting. Targeting is different per company you go to, but let's say YouTube. There was a recent incident where a YouTuber said that he did not like someone else's video. That got flagged as targeting and was one of the 3 strikes according to their policy. Now, that's obviously not US law that's saying you dislike someone's video should be a strike against you. That's their rules of engagement. They're the ones setting it. It's not governed by US law. It's governed by them. And if police need to get involved because you break US law, that can happen if you incite violence or things like that. But most of the time, most of the bans are not breaking US law. They're breaking the terms and conditions, the rules of engagement of these companies that own the marketplace of ideas. Then they also set the rules of moderation. So not only what you're allowed to say, but also how you say it and the occurrence at which you say it matters, and what the punishment is once you've broken one of their rules. So first of all, a big topic that's been around is the political efficacy of the moderators. There's a very interesting podcast from Joe Rogan where he brought on somebody who had claimed multiple times that Twitter was politically moderating their site and getting rid of ideas they don't like. And Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and one of his head officials in Twitter of the moderating department. And so what you had there is they were discussing. One of them was bringing up, cases where maybe someone on one side of the aisle was punished lighter than someone else. And what it came down to is that Twitter remained, Jack Dorsey and the executive remained the entire time very consistent with their message. Their goal is to be a marketplace of ideas. Their goal is to be neutral. Are there oversights in their moderation? Absolutely. They occur all the time. They occur, I think she had a quote that they occur every hour. If you pick the data correctly, it will absolutely look as though they are politically leaning. If you looked at it another way, it wouldn't look as so. But their goal is to be as neutral as possible. That was their message. So they've implemented, and so has Facebook and YouTube, AI algorithms to check it. That way, get rid of the efficacy of the moderators altogether. However, a lot of the AIs have failed. There's a famous case where a YouTuber named Markiplier, a lot of his fans basically got banned from YouTube for quote unquote emote spamming, which is where you put a bunch of emotes in a comment section so that it runs too fast. But when there was oversight that looked at this after he called attention to it, it turned out that they weren't emote spamming at all. They would maybe even put a few emotes in, but because they were part of a larger group that was doing it, they all got banned at the same time. So the AI is certainly not perfect. Finally, what is acceptable punishment? This goes back to the efficacy of the moderators, in that 2 moderators can have a very different view about what's acceptable punishment based on your actions. So one moderator might think that's just a warning, a slap on the wrist. Another might say that's a week ban. Another might say that's a month ban, all for the same offense. They might all think it deserves different punishment. You're basically putting a team of hired people who are not judges in the position of being a judge. And they give them rules. They give them guidelines, so to say, of how to handle these situations. But it's been shown that time and time again, the guidelines are guidelines. They're not, hard set rules. And the main issue with this is because of the complexity of what they're dealing with. Every single ticket of something that gets flagged as, harmful or breaking the terms of agreement, they have to look at that, and they're all individually different, right? So yeah, a lot of them will fall under the same category and they're easy to deal with, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are complex. A lot of them are hard to deal with. A lot of it you have to deal with outside information in order to just get the context of what's going on. These problems are extremely complex. Another real issue that comes with um, corporations owning the marketplace is idea pooling. Facebook is has been accused and openly admits that they have done this, which is basically if they know that, let's say you're into bowling, then all of their suggested content with for you will be bowling. What this also means is that if you have a certain political viewpoint, they will make all of your suggested comment in line with your already existing political views. This obviously goes against the spirit of a marketplace of ideas, because it's cutting you off from other ideas and allowing you to just be affirmed in the ideas that you came in with. Now, I will say, a lot of these places, YouTube is less so. YouTube doesn't claim to be a marketplace of ideas. They claim to be, a place where others express their ideas. Whereas Twitter and Facebook have claimed to be a marketplace of ideas. That's what they are. So the point here is do we as a society have a responsibility to hold them accountable to uphold the standards in which we would think a marketplace of ideas should have? Are they not doing their job correctly, or are they doing their job correctly? Because there are a million people who, in normal conversation, they were being rude, they got banned. They were harassed. There is harassment that exists, and they ban those people correctly. So are they doing their job well? Well, there's a couple ways to look at this. And here's what it comes down to. Is there a problem? Do we have a current problem? It's up to the individual. Some people might think that this is the lesser of two evils, or lesser of 10 evils of who could own the marketplace of ideas, and that they're doing a decent job. Maybe we just need a couple of tweaks. Some people might say that this is atrocious and the whole system needs to be ripped up and thrown out, and we can't consider these an actual marketplace of idea or a place where ideas can flow freely. It's really up to the individual. But being aware of what a marketplace of ideas is and knowing where they are now, I think that being well informed in those two regions will allow each and every one of us to make our own decision about what we think is the responsibility of a marketplace of idea and where that should exist. Here's my sources. Thank you so much for watching.